So, Andre, you have just done your yoga, you've done your cold shower, and you're ready to go, and it's only 9 o'clock, and you even wanted to start at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
remember,
go.
I was going to say, I remember in my life when I had such vigor.
Yeah, I go up pretty early. Um, still, I have problem with vertigo and stuff like that. So it kind of makes me want to stay a bit longer in bed. But before I had a vertigo and such a things, I went up a bed like this
Hmm.
directly. But now because I have the vertigo, I need to. It's kind of complicated, but anyway, um, it's solvable probably.
Well, you've had it for some time now. So, how do you have vertigo when you're in bed lying down?
Everything is spinning and swaying. As
Ah,
I sit down here, everything is back and forth like this.
right. And is that a constant thing?
It's a constant, yeah. And I have had a small brackets where I didn't had it, but I have had it since 2022. So, uh, but yeah, looking
So,
at the healthcare system in another country would be better. I have thought about that for a good while now, and even a friend of mine said, "Yeah, you better go to Cyprus or some other country, and you get work there instead, like a service work through the phone, so I can sit down and so on. And then I go to the doctor there instead, and they will fix it because we don't have a good system when it comes to healthcare in Sweden and so on. You
wow.
don't really get any help for anything.
Mm. And so, have they diagnosed what it is?
No,
No. Well,
not for 2 years.
that's. So, do they not have a clue about it?
Nah, no.
Wow.
Um,
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
would consider it either is the neck or the vestibular system or something like that, or it could be the teeth hair that is pressuring on the nerves here.
Right.
It could be many things. But
Mm.
but even if I say that to the doctor, he just say, "Oh, I don't believe that." Yeah, but we shouldn't believe. We should know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Indeed.
and that's how it actually works in Sweden. My brother got a long time before he got the diagnosed with his the rubber bands that hold the knee and the leg together.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
They're tendons.
yeah, it took him many years, even if he couldn't walk properly and so on.
Yeah. The health system in Western countries is becoming appalling. Many years ago, 20 years ago, I started to discover that healthcare in foreign countries was much better than it was in my own. The hospitals are newer and modern, and the care assisters are much more professional, polite, and interested in what they do. In our institutions here, it's just a farm. Everyone's so dejected because they're not getting paid anything. They're fed up with having crap facilities, working in shit 30, 40, 50-year old buildings. And yeah, it's really bad. And
Yeah.
these days, we're
Then
struggling
just
to.
imagine Sweden, which is of the worst when it comes to those countries.
Right. So for me to get my tooth replaced, They
Yeah.
want £3,500
Mm.
for an implant. Now, you can buy a very reasonable car for £500.
Yeah.
And so 7 cars, I don't think so.
Mm.
And so it looks like I'll be staying without, unless government policy changes. Um, you see, what they need to do is they need to bring the rogue dentistry system to task, because they've ran away with the prices. They don't want to do any national health patients anymore. It's all private, and they're charging through the roof. And they need bringing in line, But the way the world's going, that seems all different sorts of institutions are going feral. They're just a law unto themselves, and so we'll see what happens. Anyway, we've got another one of the book reviews,
Yeah.
conversations, and so let's crack on with it, mate.
Yeah. So on page 363, so taking off where we ended last time, this is where you were in with the battle with the beast and so on, you know. So meditation, affirmations, prayer, positive mantras, and sheer determination for life were the tools that saw that saw me through for 10 months after the initial 2 months long duel with evil. Many hours per day I practiced all of the above and eventually completely banished the darkness. After the massive demonic onslaught of the first 8 weeks, I could feel the intensity of the battle slowly subsiding, which increased my confidence that I had vanquished the initial attack of those evil forces. With the initial victory, my confidence grew stronger and stronger. And as it grew, the darkness could no longer sustain its attack. Yeah. So that is a good thing to have in mind when struggling with dark forces and having one's struggles in life and so on. And keep on doing what one is doing, because eventually there will come better days, so to speak.
Well, with mental health, it is always recommended that we eat well, we sleep well, we exercise, we try to engage in some sort of hobby to take our minds off things, and to keep striving forward. That's the medical perspective. The spiritual perspective is that you do all those things that I was doing as well. You see, when people have dark periods in their lives, i.e., let's say depression, it could be depression because they've lost a loved one, or they're seriously ill, or it could be some sort of compromising in a spiritual way. Now, my situation was because I was compromised in a spiritual way. And because I've encountered this feeling before, I knew what it was. And due to the circumstances I was in, then I had absolutely no choice save to come inside. I couldn't, be free to, do exercise when I wanted to, other than press ups and squats and, things like that. I couldn't walk in nature. and there's many restrictions, and I was in a very negative environment. Um, but I suppose in one respect it was a beautiful thing because it enabled me to go within. Um, you know, I don't. I haven't spoken about it as yet, but most of my viewers know that I had a period of incarceration, and it was in a very negative environment with very troublesome people, of course.
Yeah.
Um, America does a certain way with lunacy. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of crazy people there. And,
Mm.
when the vast majority of people are tattooed on their heads, completely covered, shaven heads, completely covered tattoos all over their faces and bodies, you have to know that their psyche is very strange.
Yeah, it's like portals to demonic forces or
Yeah,
whatever.
absolutely. And many of these people were incarcerated for drug dealing, being in drug gangs, Mexican drug cartel, very dangerous people. And so initially, I was celled up with uh, a skinhead Nazi,
Mm.
completely shaven head, tattoos all over the body, some on the face.
Mm.
Lived his life being um, of the skinhead fraternity, uh,
Mm.
being in jail 9 years previously, and was about to get a sentence of another 10.5 years. These people are crazy. And
Mm.
so being in cells with men of this mental disposition, there's a bad energy there, and there's a bad energy
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're very confined in effectively one small area with 50 men, and
Yeah.
the noise is astronomical, echoing around this small arena because there's no soft furnishings at all. It's all stainless steel, bolted down tables and just concrete floor and concrete walls, concrete ceiling, and TVs blowing out, one in Spanish and one in English, and they're
Mm.
on maximum volume for the competition, and everybody shouting above everybody else. So this is when you get let out into the day room, but very often we was locked up 24 hours a day, um, and so you have a lot of time to read. I was reading 12 hours a day.
Mm.
Um, I was meditating 5 hours a day. I was doing yoga for an hour a day, exercising best part of half an hour or an hour, um, and doing a lot of self discovery. Uh, because of that very potentially threatening environment, and because it was all very new and shocking to me, well, I mean, my whole homeostasis went into a variety of shock. And then I had to call on every last ounce of energy to keep my equilibrium within inside and to still my mind and heart. And it wasn't easy, it took 2 solid months initially to fend off the devil, feeling that negative energy emanating from so many people and in the whole area. And when you are incarcerated in a tiny cell for 24 hours a day for weeks on end, and I never saw the daylight or fresh air for 4 months in one particular place.
Mm.
That's evil. What they do to you,
Yeah.
that's evil. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was a very useful thing because if it wasn't for those circumstances, I wouldn't have been forced into confronting it to such a um, head-on manner. If I was outside, then I could have done all different sorts of things to distract myself and kind of run away from myself, But I couldn't in there. I had to face it, and I faced this very very negative, powerful energy via meditation, mantras, varieties of prayer. Not praying. I never pray to a god. I don't believe in gods, but I pray to higher self and cosmic consciousness to give me the strength, not to take me out of that scenario, not to release me from it, but to give me the strength to deal with it.
Yeah.
I was happy to deal with it. And slowly, 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 that very negative energy started to diminish. And then throughout the next one whole year, I was, in a different arena, allowed a little bit more freedom. And so I could do yoga, I could walk around a yard, I could meditate. And so I did that. And what happened is, Andre, I noticed a huge transition from the beginning of that year to the end. By the end of that year, I was absolutely at peace. And I could just sit in meditation endlessly. And I was reading a lot of the Bible and some of the Quran and lots of other biblical interpretations and Buddhism and all that different sorts of stuff. And I was really finding my core essence, of cosmic consciousness. And so I was super still and detached from my environment. It was very much like I wasn't even there because I was so deep inside, in my own peace. And I was just kind of like in a dream, just observing all the myriad of men around me, all different sorts of gangs and creeds, a very high proportion of Mexican drug dealers, black people, skinhead, white, what do they call them? Premicist, white premicist gang.
Aryan Brotherhood, maybe
Yeah,
they
that's that
call.
sort of thing. Just very, very devious people.
Hmm.
But there were a few uh, cosmic souls amongst them, and who were bright, untainted by it, and intelligent. But the whole thing coming out of that, I knew this very negative evil force existed. There's no doubt about it. Evil exists in the world. And when I came to the end of that, I was in no doubt that there was some variety of cosmic entities. Uh, there are various gods, and uh, I was appealing to the Christian God to see what efficacy I could extract from a communication with it. And there is benefit in it through self deception, delusion, and this notion of faith. Um, and it's not all entirely self hypnosis. I've had too many bizarre experiences to know that it's only self hypnosis. There are entities which you can communicate with, and so because I absolutely felt and lived with the very very negative one for 2 whole months, then I became acquainted with the other one, and so they are real. And that occasion I had Jesus speak to me in my own home here.
Yeah.
It was very, very real. And so, an incredible experience to discover the nature of the supernatural cosmos.
Yeah. Like a monastery, but in a very sinister way.
Mm,
Um, it's very interesting because I have thought about those circumstances where you were in as well. I mean, it differs from country to country, and many countries it's less worse than it is in America.
yeah. And
So,
many, of course, even more horrendous. When you
and
go to
even that, you know,
third world countries, South America,
South
Malaysia. Oh,
Africa, yeah,
yeah, really, really bad. Um, but yeah, I'm going to write a book about it eventually. But you see, it was so massive. What I experienced was so massive that I, I still to this day don't even know where to begin with the emotional facet of it, with revisiting it, because I've got to go back there again, Andre. I've got to go back there again in every single facet of it, and that's going to take some doing. That's going to take
yeah,
some doing. But I will do it. It has to be done.
yeah,
But my present book, the one that we're speaking about now, that came out of it as a result, not a direct result, albeit I include lots of um, my experience into that book.
yeah,
I'm not speaking about where I was um, or anything like that, because that's 1,000 pages in itself.
yeah.
And so I just needed to um, release the past 14 years of my spiritual um, sojourn before I even contemplated this one.
Hmm. Very interesting subject.
Yeah, very interesting. And so when people they find themselves in these levels of depression or spiritual turmoil, or feeling that they have some sort of demonic attachment, well, I feel the only way out is in. Uh, to 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 go deep within and gather up all of our human and spiritual resources. And I suppose faith would be very, very important, because it would give people a great deal of strength. I never had faith in a God. I had faith in my own spirit.
Hmm.
Um, and knowing, I did know, Andre, that somehow I was being looked after. Somehow there was some entity which was protecting me.
Yeah.
But it was also the case that this entity needed me to go on this journey, because it wanted me to make certain realizations. And so
Hmm.
every single facet of it, from the beginning to the end, was, in my mind, preordained by the cosmos. Um, and albeit physically, I was absolutely unscathed and uh, well respected, with you know reasonable people, people who knew that I was, a good soul, and a person with integrity. Uh, a person who had integrity could recognize the integrity, but
Yeah.
there's not many in these places. They're all exceedingly corrupt individuals and
Yeah.
corrupt souls,
Yeah.
but not everybody. And so the ones that aren't, you can see them very, very easily. You can feel them.
Yeah,
light
I
beings.
I could imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Because you recognize certain people just right off the bat, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, without going too deeply into that, we'll stick to the theme of the book.
Yeah. So the next underlining here is on page 383.
Hmm.
What we put into our minds is what we can expect to get out. Then I underlined here that which we put into our minds, we get out. Yes, on the same page, I underlined our psychology changes drastically depending on what we listen to, what we speak about, what we watch, what environment we are within, who we mix with, and of course, how we think. Thoughts become things. Yeah. So, what books we read, what people we choose to associate with, and so on and so forth. And many people might not be aware about the effect of a certain peoples and certain music and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I listen to vast amount of different kinds of music and so on, you know. And I listen to music that are maybe about heartbreak and stuff like that. That maybe country music, blues, punk rock, and so on, and black metal. And all those kind of music have like a downward or like dark stream to it, you know. And some music are very philosophical and so on. But I don't listen to music that much because I know I mostly listen to dark music anyway. So I keep that aside and maybe I listen to 432 hertz or something else instead, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but it I have have really cherry picked many people I have around me and so on, you know. And as we start to learn to know each other better and better, we affect each other in positive ways and so on, you know.
Hmm.
And if a certain person see like he is not eating candy, okay, then it becomes like a social code that we don't do that kind of stuff. Or like if somebody talks about I take cold showers and so on, then somebody else starts to do that as well, you know. And oh, I've done that in the past, but I don't realize how good it actually affected me, and so on. Or because all of us are doing either yoga, meditation, training, and even martial arts and so on, that has a positive effect on everybody. Even though we are different people, we have within our vicinity these great attributes and so on that affects us in positive ways and so
Yeah,
on.
so there's many ways that we're affected. We're affected by absolutely everything. We're affected by every single person we meet, every single thing we do.
Yeah,
And when we become finely tuned into the essence of what we are, When we are close to certain people, we can feel their energy.
Yeah.
We can feel their spirit, or we can feel whether they have a spirit or not.
Yeah.
Whether they are just seriously vacuous, non-spirited beings. I believe there are many non-spirited beings,
Yeah.
and there are evil beings, and benevolent beings. And in the book that I write a section on the attachments of negative energies, how they come about, how to recognize them, how to get rid of them. And we can catch negative attachments in many, many realms. Being in the vicinity of a person who has one, they will pass it on to you, or it will jump from that person onto you because it wants to experience your energy. It wants to corrupt your energy. These things, I'm positive, exist.
Yeah.
And when we see someone that has done evil, I would think that it's because they have had an evil attachment,
Yeah.
or a few of them, and they haven't known how to get rid of them. They haven't maybe even been aware that they have them, because maybe they were just empty husks. They were just
Yeah.
automaton, and evil spirits have taken over them.
Yeah.
And so it gets very, very complex. And so I've monitored myself throughout many years, and I felt when negative energies have come about, when I have began to partake in them. Um, and to this day, I still partake in some negative energies, which are not evil, but they're boisterous, they're jousting, they're mimicking and condescending. Um, they're a little bit like some DMT entities. DMT entities can be mimicking. They will mimic they will mimic, and they will um, laugh at the human being for the things
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
Uh, for instance, they will mock our sexuality.
Yeah.
The fact that we do that, they will mock that
Mm.
as seemingly like a low life form thing.
Mm.
Um, and this is probably why this whole semen retention thing is, quite big in certain spiritual realms.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but yeah, there are these entities which we live with, and I live with the variety that likes to uh, joust and can I say what's the fair word to say? Taunt. There's a spirit within me that likes to taunt Christians, as you're aware.
Yeah.
Uh, and the reason why this is, Andre, because I have seen many uh, of these so called Christians, and I have felt their negative energies. And I know that they are possessed by demons,
Yeah.
um, and falsehoods and fakery. And I know that there isn't an authentic human being at the helm in these people. And so I'm mocking the devil himself, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, and what I do is I joust and I mock and I demean, and then I force these demons out via the actions of the human being. And then I see the true essence of the demon. For instance,
Mm.
and I mean, I'm always banging on about the hideous nature of what is written in the Bible and how,
Yeah.
in actual fact, it is evil. And many, many people speak about the Old Testament being evil without a doubt. It's the
Mm.
demiurge, it's all arse about face. Satan was the good guy, and Yahweh was, in actual fact, Satan. and you just read it, and everything about that book tells you that. Um, but you see, these Christians, they have the attachment of the negative God, Yahweh, and they don't know it because they're so stupid. And so the spirit within me uh, plays with them and attempts to plant a seed of truth within their corruption. So lots of people, they don't know. They have no idea at the depth I work at because they can't see it. And, you know, with every line in that book, as I'm saying incessantly, there is years and years of experience and billions of years of cosmic development, which pertains to the wisdom of those lines. And people need to be very, very wise to grasp it in its fullness. And have certain levels of wisdom to grasp certain things about it. Now, you grasp certain things about it that you feel and know, but you are also aware that there is a great deal of depth more into all these things, and it pertains to the realm of the spirit. Because that's what this thing is. This thing is a playground for spirits, and the human body has been created to facilitate that.
Yeah, so choose one's spirits is something one must do, so to speak.
Yeah, but I don't think most people can, because if they aren't true cosmic gods, so to speak, then they are just extras in our movie, and they are all around us. To compromisers as a part of the game for us to recognize, to seek out the true spiritual entities, and to be aware of the malevolent ones. It really is a spiritual game, or not really a game. It facilitates spiritual development and cosmic wisdom. That's what I feel it does.
Yeah.
It's very, very bizarre, and very, very few people recognize it, and yeah, it just gets crazy. It just gets crazy, It just gets you completely outside of the fiction of the ego. The ego is just superficial, silly nonsense that's going on here, and all the real stuff is going on between the lines.
Yeah. There's many things to say about it. Many
Yeah,
things.
it's massively complex.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I start to think about what spirits um, are taking part of me at times.
yeah,
I know as when I was younger, I often thought about myself as a wolf, and so on. And that's certainly a spirit that delves within me and has delved within me. And
mm,
also a knight in shining armor, having the damsel at his shoulder and having the sword pointing down at the dragon.
right.
That's two of them I come to think about.
And what about any negative energies which joust with you and try to affect you? What about those?
The wolf could be both, you know,
Mm,
because it could be bloodthirsty, you know.
yeah.
So I would say that is both. There certainly is some, but I can't say exactly what that would be because I haven't put any name on that or looked upon it s- that intensely. I've looked upon certain things intensely, but those two that I said is the ones that I can pinpoint, you know.
Mm,
Um, but there certainly is an angry one. There's one that goes into despair at times as well, you know.
right.
And there's a warrior spirit, of course.
Hmm.
And hmm, it's interesting. It's interesting because some of them one might maybe want to let go of.
Yeah. I often, every day, I'm aware of what's going on within me and the
Yeah,
things I say. And I observe other people and what they say. And
yeah,
what I say is very different to the vast majority of people. And it's most certainly in a very different demeanor.
yeah,
And the demeanor by which I speak um, prevents a very large portion of people um, feeling like they would want to bask within my energy.
mm,
They Some people they like it, of course. They like the earthiness of it, but the
yeah,
earthiness and the reality and the dark truth is too scary for most people.
yeah,
They are always like shunning the darkness in them and in anybody else, and only heading for the light. Well, any spiritual person will tell you you have to visit the dark before you're ever going to see the light. And
yeah,
so these people that are all love and lighters and just want people to speak about love and be kind and all this, it's just nonsense. It's stupid. And I would even go as far as to say that they're all being beguiled by the devil himself, because by keeping them in this superficial, pretentious um, uh, it's a realm with no benefit, Andre.
yeah,
They keep themselves in this fantasy, and like the demon would allow them to be, beguile them to tell them, come away here, come away here, come away here. Look at this light, look at that light, look at that nice person, because he is dark, and he doesn't want them to see him. You see, because if they see him, that's when they truly awaken and become enlightened. So that force, I think, is incessantly beguiling people. And the reason why I feel it absolutely true to the core of my essence is because of that book, those books, that the Islamic book and the Christian book and the Judaic law, all those three books, they are all demiurges without a shadow of a doubt, because you can see the evil through and through. Um, the least evil is the Christian one, but it's still very, very beguiling and false, and it takes the people out from themselves, Andre. You know that. It extricates their spirit out, and it projects that their savior is somewhere else, and that is completely false. Their savior is themselves. They are the essence
Yeah.
of cosmic consciousness,
Yeah.
if they have a spirit. And so you see the devil in many, many forms. And where is the last place you're going to look for the devil? You know, in so-called kind acts. But these people who, so many people have written about it, made movies about it, the falseness of these Christians, when just under the surface of their superficiality is the evil. And so that's what I joust with, and that's what I endeavour to extract, to show them to themselves. I want to reveal them to themselves. And it's kind of like in the Bible, there are demonic possessed people. And Jesus comes upon them and banishes the devil. Uh, and the devil, like on one occasion, fled and entered into a herd of pigs and then ran off a cliff and perished. That's one of the parables in there. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It is actually a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But the only truth that I've come upon are a few lines in the New Testament where Jesus says, "Truly I say unto you, the kingdom of God is within you all." And then in the book of Thomas, he says, "We are all twins." Um, uh, and share in God consciousness. Uh, God consciousness is within you and it is without you. And
Yeah.
so that is absolutely true, because I sense that there is a consciousness and a sentience which appears to be centered in this human experience. But it also extends to the expanse of the cosmos. And when we become spiritually awoken, we engage with that. We know it's there. We feel it. We intuit it. We experience it. But when we are closed and trapped within our ego, which is, the machinations of the demiurge, we can't feel it. We can't experience that.
Hmm.
So there's so many people. Um, it's so obvious, isn't it? It's so obvious, particularly within Islam at this moment in time. So many of these people proclaim, to be in a relationship with a loving God, when it is absolutely clear that they are the opposite. And there is, a very similar thing, only not so overtly evil, with Christians. Christians are more beguiled. They're yeah, they're just a softer version. They're a softer version,
Yeah.
uh, and I think they're a softer version because Islam speaks of Allah, and Allah doubtless is Yahweh. And so the Old Testament is through and through evil, and
Yeah.
so the same then is the other book.
Yeah.
The New Testament has a different God. It actually is a different God. And when in the Bible
Is
they
it?
say it's the same God, it isn't.
Hmm. Because I know Arabic speaking Christians call God Allah as well.
Right. Uh huh.
So, but of course, it could be different, yeah.
Yeah. I don't
But
think it is
both of
different.
them
I
are,
think they are the same one. They're the
yeah,
demiurge.
yeah, yeah.
Because they're both
The demiurge.
Abrahamic. They both pertain to the Abrahamic origin.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they are this Jewish God, in a different guise, under a different name.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually met a Muslim at the gym that I talked to. I met many different people at the gym, but he actually said like, "Yeah, how could Islam be the only true religion?" And
Mm.
he asked those questions,
Yeah.
and he liked the Greek mythology and the Roman Empire. So he had tattoos of like Greek mythology here and Roman Empire here and so on. And
Hmm.
he said that the Muslim people look, when he go on the street, look upon him like in a bad way because he
Hmm.
had those things upon him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, riddled with judgment and hate and all those different sorts of things. And so, um, this then enables me to have greater insight into the global leaders, the ultimate hierarchy, not the government puppets or anything like that. The energy,
Yeah,
the force which is operating behind it,
yeah,
because they know that these gods are negative, and all you have to do is look at the iconography in the Vatican to see that the greatest symbolism is the serpent. So you know who they worship, and you know when they name their massive telescope Lucifer. Uh,
yeah,
why would Christians name that telescope, which brings them insight, Lucifer, if they thought Lucifer was their arch enemy? They
yeah,
don't think Lucifer is their arch enemy. They
yeah,
believe Lucifer is the one God that shines light on humanity. And
yeah,
Lucifer isn't related to Satan at all. It's just a fabrication,
yeah,
a little bit of assumption and conjuring up from a couple of lines in the Bible. That is all. It's just very, very highly speculative. But when you look at it with reason, Lucifer it means light. Light bearer is Latin for light, isn't it? And so.
yeah,
Yeah, so you look at this and you see that any intellectual person can see, but then you listen to people like Jordan Peterson and all of his entourage, which are really really speaking as if the Old Testament is by a benevolent God, and I'm thinking, you people, you know, your intelligence has become inverted. It's become so corrupt due to your ego, because it's turned in on itself, uh, because they so desperately wanted to find benevolence in evil scripture. Then they have become self-deluded, and are in a state of denial, just like all other religious people. They absolutely embrace the denial. And so, in my estimation, again, it's the evil working through them,
yeah,
completely beguiling them from his nefarious ways.
yeah. Mm. You have fallen for it, yeah,
Yeah, they've all fallen hook, line, and sinker. But then you've got people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. They didn't fall for it one iota, and they knew it was a crock of shit from beginning to end. But they themselves. I would think probably not so much Sam Harris, because he does seem to have a spiritual facet. But Dawkins and Hitchens, they never had the remotest connection to spirit. Uh, they just couldn't see it or feel it. And if they couldn't feel it, they obviously didn't have it. And so, that opens other doors in my perception, because it's not all about intellect here in this dimension. There are spirited beings and there are non-spirited beings. There are evil beings and there are benevolent beings, and all in between, a whole array of in between. And it's just like a free for all, just to put everybody to task. And it's kind of like going into the astral plane. You go into the astral plane, you've got seemingly very negative entities, and you've got benevolent entities.
Yeah.
It's down to you which ones you want to engage with.
Yeah. I must take a piss.
Yes, okay, Matt, I'll just put this on pause. I'll go and do the same.
Yeah.
You see, the vast majority of religious people.
Have you put it on again?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The vast majority of religious people, they only have an idea of God. They don't have the spirit. And that is the huge difference. And if you have spirit, then you know you are God. You know that that is your connection to cosmic God consciousness. And so this is your temple. This is where you worship. This is where you communicate from. You don't need to go anywhere else and to worship, effigies and beings in the sky and this, that, and the other. No, you are it. And so with 4,200 approximately religions on the planet, all they are doing is worshipping themselves, only they are projecting their worship out onto somebody else. And, it's a very, very ridiculous thing because nobody's self-empowered. And, that's the foolishness of the human being.
Yeah.
But for those who are self-empowered, well, it's just a no-brainer. So all the so-called Christians I've communicated with in my life, I would always ask them to give me an instantiation of why they believe and have faith, and the vast majority of them invariably never had anything. And I always used to say, well, I find that really, really curious because I have actually had many, many experiences, and yet I don't believe like you say you do.
Yeah.
Because I know something else. I know something. And everything about what I know tells me that I don't need to worship any other books or any effigies or symbolisms or anything like that. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
And so obviously that has to be true because all over the world people do feel spiritual and religious,
Yeah.
but they're not connected enough, clever enough to be able to derive where that's coming from.
So on page 384, when we use profanity, we destroy our inner heaven. When we speak negatively about anything at all, we do the same. When we shout, scream, and holler, when we even think anything remotely negative, we open the door of hell, and then the door which is a jar of beacons. A jar beacons us to follow through and embrace that darkness to its complete offering. When we become deeply in tune with our minds and bodies, we become cautious about what environment we enter. what company we keep, what we listen to, and watch, and most importantly, how we think. Yes. Mm. Uh, yeah, there's many people that don't seem to be able to read environment, the energy of uh, how certain things are, and so on. I mean, I snap it up pretty easily. Uh, those kinds of things. So many are prone to naivety and so on. And if they haven't experienced certain kind of darker things, they think that it isn't there.
Yeah. So it pertains to experience with many people,
Yeah.
and but the majority, they don't realize that they are potentially heaven and they are potentially hell.
Yeah.
Uh, it doesn't pertain to um, our environment anything as much as we think it does, because what we see and perceive from our environment, we see it and perceive it within. So the environment is in actual fact within us, you see. But people, they say, oh, that they're very negative people over there, or that's a very negative place over there. But when you experience them in here, in here. And
Yeah.
so, depending on the level of awareness, uh, you will know when they infiltrate. Now, of course, we're all familiar with stories about people meeting people, and not having the experience to be able to judge who they were initially, but they found out later. And it turned out that that person wasn't anything like I thought. And that person is, in fact, evil. And the things that that person did to me, yeah, and all this sort of thing, I've experienced it greatly myself. And so experience really is a key player. And many of us, you know, we're not endowed with that level of wisdom as younger people. Wisdom is the prerogative of the older person. So we have to meet many, many of these people to begin to recognize them and feel them, you see. So it's a learning process. So obviously, the older we get,
Also, different environments that some people haven't delved in, and so on.
yeah. I mean, I've been in environments whereby I've felt very, very thick in the air,
Yeah.
a kind of foreboding coming from spirit which didn't want me to be there. Um, and I could only assume that it was an ancient burial ground. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's an aura in the air, an intuition which tells you that something's foreboding. Leave this place. And then there's other places whereby it's just drenched in, cosmic love, and everything about it feels wonderful. So there are all these energies all over the world, and energies pertain to land and buildings and your environments, all different sorts of stuff like that. And when we become tuned into it, then we're very perceptive of these things.
Yeah.
But you see, if we don't know how to feel these things and how to deal with them, then we can't eradicate them. But when you do know, that's then when you start to work to remove them. And in one of the sections in that book, I speak about clearing out our houses. And I state that most people's houses, they're like houses which were left unattended for several years, and then they became filled with squatters. And these illegal squatters are all very, very negative entities.
Yeah.
their hate, their deception, they're weak, they're evil, they pertain to drugs and violence, and all these different sorts of things. The variety of person that you would expect to live free in a house which they're squatting in, but you have to take that house back. You have to extract all of those negative energies from all of those rooms, and then you have to purify and fumigate the whole place, and then you have to replenish that house back again with all positive attributes, one of study, one of exercise, one of discipline, one of respect, one of love, one of let's say the connection to nature, uh, all the attributes which we know to be good for a human being.
Mm.
We have to transform that. And so this is one of the things that I did, throughout my journey, because I realized at one stage, of course, that my house was full of negative beings. There was the haughty, there was the greedy, there was the arrogant, there was the aggressive, there was the demeaning, all these different sorts of things. My house was full of those.
Yeah.
And, to this day, I have invited a few of them back in, or allowed a few of them back in. Say 1 year ago, when I was very, very pure, uh, because I lived like a monk, I
Yeah.
lived like a monk and I could purify my body. But now I have come back out into some sort of level of society. My society is on the internet. That's my society in its entirety. I don't have a
Mm.
society out there. I move in very, very small circles and speak with very few people.
Mm.
Um, but I've noticed that the the spirits, the free radicals of society, have took up residence with me again. At my acquiescence, I've allowed them to do that. Um, and they're the ones that speak negatively, belligerent, obnoxious, supercilious, these sort of entities. And I look at myself and I ask, do those entities serve me? If I never engage with those entities, then I would have many more followers, um, many more people wanting to engage with me. But then I think, well, the vast majority of people that probably would want to engage with me are not the people that I would want to engage with me, because they would be mostly fools, I think. Love and lighters and Christians, and you see, and so it is my sole intention on this channel to give rise to the opportunity that these people leave this channel, because there isn't anything there for them.
Yeah.
Because I cannot simply engage with Christians speaking bullshit. I am compelled to tell them at every level that they are talking bullshit, and eventually they all leave. And that's with any other level of ignorant person or fool. They will stay very, very in the backgrounds, and they won't come forward because they're too intimidated by me. So it's a filtering system, and it
Yeah.
works very, very well. You see,
Yeah.
if you look at the people that come forward, they're the ones that are learned, are high in spirit. They are conscious entities. I don't have non-conscious entities coming forward, and so it's a natural filter system. So I use these negative energies for um, a good reason, and
Yeah.
they enjoy partaking in me because they're getting what they want from it.
Mm.
So what do you think about that? When I say that,
Uh,
do you feel it? Do you recognize it? Do you recognize it in yourself? Can you see similarities? Lots of people will be just thinking that it's completely insane because they can't. feel it or recognize it.
What I see is like it's an interesting way how you have put forth those different entities within your self to act as uh, like a tool or like some kind of warriors that protecting the borders, you know.
Yes.
Um, but I haven't myself used it that way, you know, or thought maybe thought about it exactly that way, you know. But mm, yeah,
You see, what I
and
say, Andre, is that if we think we are purer than pure,
yeah,
and we have no negative energies and we would never do anything negative, then
yeah,
you are fools because you have no protection. You leave
no,
yourself wide open to negative energies, and you may think, in your infinite naivety, that Jesus is protecting you.
yeah,
Well, I think the proof of the pudding is all around you, and you can see
yeah,
there ain't no Jesus protecting anyone.
no,
And so you'd be very well advised to always have a relationship with strong entities which you can deploy for your own protection.
yeah, mm.
You see, if you
Like,
don't have any sentries, any soldiers, any diplomats
yeah,
um, within your, let's say, Congress, then you don't have any tools. You don't
yeah,
have any protection. You won't have
exactly,
any advisors to tell you that, hey, this person is a negative person. You have to have these spirits to help you to do.
yeah. Yeah, so while maybe have a lot of violent or aggressive people around you, you can do the right thing. I often been sober around that kind of stuff, you know, fully sober when it comes to violent things and so on, because then I also have a certain amount of control of it, you know. But being like in a violent environment, being like a crocodile, like just observing, you know.
Yeah, so I was listening to a conversation last night by two atheists,
Yeah,
and one of them is the guy I'm often speaking about these days, Alex O'Connor, of Within Reason podcast. And these two atheists were posing each other questions, and one of them said to the other, so, what would you do if you were sitting on a plane or a bus and the person next to you started evangelizing about Jehovah? You know, there were Jehovah's Witnesses, and of course, they also take every opportunity to evangelize. What would you do, being an atheist? Um, and the other guy went, um, well, I'd be kind and I'd thank them for their offer and their advice. And, I wouldn't tell them that I'm an atheist or maybe even a Satanist. And I'm like, well, that's probably why the world is fucked
yeah,
because
because they can't be honest and so on.
nobody's being honest with each other. I mean, what would I say if somebody was evangelizing with me? I'd ask them why they became an evangelist, and I would want to know the deepest reasons of why they consider that there is a God, and they believe. And I would question, because of course I could question the nature of God, and I would see what they've got to say about lots of things, and I would enable them to answer their own. Or answer my questions their own way, because if they're evangelizing Jehovah, I would say, well, what do you think about the Passover? because the Passover, this God, which the people call Yahweh, wanted to kill millions of people's firstborns because they weren't bowing down and begging at his feet. Is that the same God that you're worshipping? And I would want to see what they said. And doubtless they would want to deny it. Oh, no, no, that's the Jewish God. No, no, our God wouldn't do anything like that. And I'll say, but your God, that's what it says in your Bible. So is it your Bible or is it not? I'd speak to them on this level,
Yeah.
which would enable them to see the contradiction and the falseness of their beliefs. And I
Yeah.
think that I would be acting honourably. I would be doing them a good service. I wouldn't be failing myself. I think it would be a win-win all around,
Yeah.
because these people have to know why certain people, others, aren't believers or are Satanists,
Yeah.
or any other number of things.
Yeah.
So best we guess read another line.
Yeah. Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. Rumi. Yeah. I think about by that line because I think about it like the nothingness. And often when I think about the absolute, I come into the nothingness, taking away all senses, all existence, really, in one way.
Yeah, because when we are silent, which of course is in meditation, then we enter into cosmic God consciousness. And that's why Rumi says that silence is the language of God and all else is poor translation. Because all else comes from the ego. Everything else
Yeah,
comes from the ego. Language comes from the ego. And so the ego isn't God. What is God is absolute stillness,
yeah,
the nothingness which is impregnated with everything.
yeah,
And so when we are still out in nature, you do feel the presence of God.
yeah,
And so, you know, you see all these Christians and Muslims who don't meditate because it's not it's not a requirement of them, or at least they don't think it is. But of course, Jesus said it was. He said, "Go into your own closet, close the door, and be silent in darkness." That's in your own mind.
yeah. And Rumi, he was a Muslim, but he was Sufi.
Hmm.
But that contains to the esoteric part of Islam. And from the beginning, the esoteric part was really the learned people. Rumi was a very learned person.
Yes. Yeah, and so
Um,
those people, they knew where it was at, like the Kabbalists, they know where it's at.
yeah,
It's just the people that follow these silly books, which have been beguiled and indoctrinated, and only have a fraction of the story,
yeah,
because everything's been cherry picked and put in.
yeah,
Um, and so it was stand to reason from the very get go that they've been beguiled and they've only got a fraction of the story. When in the Council of Nicaea, it states that originally there were about 160 books which they had to choose from to compile the 66 books of the Bible,
mm,
and how the choice was made because it was so difficult for all the elders and learned people. They left it to God, and they said, "Well, we'll leave it to God." They left all the books on the table, and they said, "Hopefully, God will give us an answer." Well, in the morning when they came back to the table, there was only 66 books left on the table, and
mm,
the rest of them were on the floor, apparently, and that's how they made the decision,
mm.
which of course is complete bollocks.
Yeah. The last line I read here was on page 401. So next line is on 402 to 403. Often, often when we would benefit significantly from inverting many facets of our lives. We do this by transmuting work into play, fear into love, anxiety into pleasure, etc. We do this first by transmuting our thoughts. Change the way you think, and you will automatically change the way you live and experience life. Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend here when he still works, but he's a chef, and he uh, say that he turned work into play, but wouldn't it be for he is very creative with food and so on? He wouldn't either like working,
Hmm.
but he turns his work into play. That's what I think about there.
Because he's a chef.
Yeah, because he's really into what he's doing. He's putting his heart into it,
Yeah,
and he also say that if another person would make the food that I do, it wouldn't be as good because they don't put the heart into it. So
yeah.
that's where the taste lies,
Hmm.
so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Lots to be said for that. You gotta love what you do.
Yeah.
But you see, by transmuting all of these energies, by being very, very conscious and aware of how we are feeling in our body and in our minds and hearts, and advisory, um, by feeling that and monitoring it, uh, then when you have this level of awareness, and you feel in a certain way in a certain place, then you can make modifications. But
Yeah.
if you live in a state of denial, whereby you don't want to delve deeply into how you're feeling, um, maybe because you feel that you can't do anything about it, then you'll never make that transition. For instance, if you are in a relationship which is stale and you're not getting much from it, but you don't have the strength to confront that, then you can't transmute that negative feeling into something positive, which you would do if you had a new partner which was more conducive. If you're working in a work environment and you're like, oh, I don't like the job, but it pays the bills and it's easy and this and the other. Well, I mean, you're just throwing your life away, and you are accepting mediocrity over pleasure and joy, which you could be doing if you turned your mind towards it and ask yourself, what really do I want to do? What really do I enjoy? Is there anything I could do for a job to enjoy it? And oh yeah, well there is one thing, well go for it then. You know, this is the thing. And all these things are difficult. They're not easy, Andre.
No.
It's not easy to leave partners. It's not easy to leave jobs or vocations that you've been in for years and years. It's not easy to leave your city. It's not easy to leave your country. But these things I've done, all of them, all over the world. And I've been true to my spirit. And, I've emancipated myself. And
Mhm.
so I do these tasks with people that I speak to in relation to self help. People, I used to do therapy for lots of people. And I will always tell them to write two lists down on two pieces of paper. One with all the things that you feel negative about in your life, and the other one with all the things you feel positive about, and then look at how many you have on one and the other. And if you are seriously out of balance in the negative, then something's very wrong in your life. If
Mm.
you are out of balance with the positive, then you've got a good handle on life. If
Yeah.
they are equal, then it's kind of like it's mediocre because one cancels out the other. And
Mm.
so when you've done that on two pieces of paper, then you write on another piece of paper how your ideal world would be. And you see what you need to cross off from the other piece of paper to achieve that.
Mm. Yeah.
So all these things, it's you know, it, it's very simple to think about,
Yeah,
um,
it's simple to think about, but
but very difficult to achieve
yeah.
because of the amount of work and commitment and emotional severance that you have. I mean, if you don't like the city that you're in, but your whole family resides in the city, to leave the city, you're going to be leaving all the family. Well, it's a tough
Yeah.
decision. It's a tough decision.
Yeah. If I think about how my list is put together, it would be like much more on the positive than on the negative, you know. But there is like at least three very negative aspects that are problematic for me. My vertigo being one of them. Um, Another is my economic situation. Another one is like I have a little bit of longing for a certain girl that, and so on. You know,
Yeah.
that's three of them. Then I have a lot of other really good stuff like my meditation, talking to you here, and talking to my friends, and reading books together, and training, and being outside in the sun and nature, and all the good stuff. Even looking at my physiology or yeah, many great stuff also, you know. And I know that like a friend of mine said, yeah, you need to go to another country. Because I've said it so many times, he said, yeah, you should do that as soon as possible, you know. And I think absolutely he's right about that. I need to get away from this place. And not that I dislike it, but I need to settle my mind elsewhere so I can get the resolve on certain things and so on. And also, there will come struggles there as well, but need to have another perspective around this all, you know.
Yeah, so that's what keeps people alive, and that's why I've travelled for so many years. Often sacrificing being in the vicinity of my daughter to go to travel the world because that was, a huge calling of mine,
Yeah,
and it enabled me to have a myriad of experiences, very, very powerful, and I am what I am as a result of that. And that puts me in a very unique perspective, um, and that's why I speak in a very unique way, because of all the diversity that I've experienced, uh, as opposed to my old friends who haven't done that. They married a girl and had some kids, and they've got a job, and the biggest thing they'll ever do in their house, in their lives, is move house, to quench their misery, of the boring lives that they live, the careful lives that they live. They bribe themselves with a newer car and a bigger house, and yet their lost souls are still there, only in a bigger house and a bigger car. And
yeah,
so they aren't satiated. They've sold out to fear.
Yeah.
and comfort.
In the beginning of this month, I actually thought about. I looked at the tickets for flight to Portugal and so on, and I thought, if I go there, I will not have money, so I need to find a job as soon as possible. Then I either because then I will need to live on the street if I don't get an income, you know. And so I just thought that back and forth. Yeah, but that would make me more tired if I don't have everything there right away and so on, you know. Or I could just do it anyway and just trust in the process, because one thing to do is it's not so stressful in the countries like that are more sunny and so on, you know. So having my vertigo could be an easier task back in those countries as well. Because the only thing that I need is roof over my head and food and training. And all the other things is a plus, you know, a book
Yeah,
here and there.
it takes a special person with a certain constitution, to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I did it all of my life, and I started when I was 17, and I went to Canada. I had the opportunity to go to Canada for a couple of weeks because my best friend's family was emigrating there, and my best friend's dad thought it would be a good idea because I could keep his son company whilst the transition was made. Well,
Yeah.
when I was there, myself and my friend, we decided that we are going to set up business. And I was only 17 at the time. And we
Mm.
thought, well, we'll go knocking on doors to do gardening, to do window cleaning, to do odd jobs. We worked in an ice factory. We were doing lots of menial tasks for people when they knew that we were odd job people. So we had a station wagon full of tools, and we could make a living. And then I rented a room in a house in the city, and that was when I was 17. I was a self-made man.
Mm.
Then I decided that I would go to Greece because I just wanted to be a scuba diver instructor. Now, I only had a very low level um, uh, qualification at that stage, but I knew a little bit about diving and I wanted to go through the ranks and become an instructor. So I just went around all the marinas and asking questions about where's the diving firms, this and the other. I found the diving firms and I ended up getting a job. And I lived on the diving boat. I was the one that actually lived on the diving boat to look after the boat so it wouldn't get stolen by Albanian criminals.
Mm.
Because the boss of the company deemed me to be a very strong minded and bodied person and perfect for the job.
Mm.
And I was. Then I went uh, to Canada, and and I ended up. This was 10 years later. I ended up working for a millionaire who owned a yacht charter company. So I was working on millionaire yachts in a beautiful sunny marina with my shirt off all day long with a bunch of lads, cleaning the boats and helping the marine mechanic. Um, and, then I went to Australia and I worked for a guy refurbishing an Aboriginal station. Then I worked in the gold mines. Yeah, I just went knocking doors, Andre. Uh,
Mm.
and when I went to most of these countries, I had very little money. When I landed in Canada, I had £300 in my pocket, and that probably, at a real scrape, could have lasted me at that time probably about a month. But I found a job within 2 weeks. First thing I did when I got out of the airport, I went to a hostel. so I could meet people who were traveling around who knew things, And then
Hmm.
I bought the local newspaper to look down what jobs they had. And then I thought, well, I need transport. I bought a mountain bike so I could go around the city. So I bought a map. So I've got my mountain bike, the map, and the newspapers. And then, I'll be using telephone call boxes because mobile phones weren't about then. And, I got jobs all over the world doing this. And so it just depends what level your will is at and what you need
Yeah,
to do.
because if I would do that, I wouldn't have any other choice than go from store to store, from company to company, just ask, and
Yeah,
even on farms and so on.
yeah,
I wouldn't have any choice, so it would be really stupid just getting down there and don't doing what is needed to get done, so to
yeah.
speak. Um, but the vertigo is really compromising, and uh, but I can move around. It's not that, but things take a little bit slower time. Doing.
Well, the other thing that you should do is then you should seek out more government money for your condition because you are effectively disabled, and so there are monies available for people. So go through that procedure. It's long and it's drawn out, but you just keep getting the doctor's reports, and then you go for I don't know MRI scans and this and the other. You get all
I've
that
done
documented.
all that. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
therefore, you've got it all documented. So, therefore, you shouldn't be struggling financially because if you are disabled, then you should be on good money.
Yeah. They don't seem to see that. I have said it to them, but I can't work. You need to write that I can't work. But I don't do that. They don't give me a diagnosis for not be able to work, because if you're looking good, you are not fat. You don't have any dark features around the eyes.
Yeah,
They just think, yeah, he's super healthy. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's almost like uh, society is made for crushing down the strong ones.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, they're always going to do everything in their power to deter you. And,
Yeah,
they're only going to be paying these days for the real needy. And so, if your vertigo really is debilitating, then you should spend a lot of time concentrating on that because that will then take you out of your poverty.
yeah,
And so that's the thing that I would concentrate on doing. So let's just do one more question because we're at 1 hour and 40 minutes now,
yeah,
and I'm gonna take some breakfast and rest my throat.
yeah.
Oh,
So here's the long one. I took that one on page 406 because it's um, something that I realized that I need to think more about. So it was not obvious that I put this one here. But
mhm.
self love. If we haven't learned to love ourselves, we haven't learned to let go of all the phantoms that hunt our soul. We are metaphorically a living house of horrors. And as we all know, there is no sen- sensitivity in a haunted house.
Yeah, no
We,
sanctity, no peace.
yeah, no sanctity in a haunted house. We must settle our hearts and face every possible hindrance to our inner peace. We must slowly come to terms with our in house goals and specters.
Ghouls,
Goals like
in-house ghouls and spectres, ghosts and demons and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, specters. during our meditations over many years. We have to create peace with them all and let them go. We confess our sins, seek atonement, apologize, reconcile, forgive, and ask for forgiveness. We accept the world for what it is and give up the fight to change it. We do everything necessary to enable us to move on from our pain, guilt, shame, anger, disappointment, and ill feelings of any description. It all has to be resolved before we can pass through that very narrow path to nirvana, heaven, paradise.
Yep.
Yeah. So self love, it's a hard thing to get head around a bit. I feel um, because some things about me isn't loving towards myself.
Hmm.
Um, it's more uh, like whipping oneself a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And even if I would be a champion in something, I wouldn't feel uh, perfectly enough at the times.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing though, Andre. That's not what I'm speaking about in this sentence. I've flogged myself all my life, and
Yeah,
in a very recent video, I say how I'm very very strict and governed. So when I'm chastising the traits of my viewers, um, it's not anything that I don't do to myself on a daily basis. So it's
mm,
not like I'm putting myself on a pedestal and talking down to everybody else. I'm leading by example, and
mm,
people looking at me with my body and attributes and that they can see that the proof of the pudding is you know what I am displaying. I'm not bullshitting, and I don't think anybody has ever had me down remotely for a bullshitter. They know exactly that I'm speaking from a core essence. And
yes,
so discipline and whipping myself, has always been my bag. But
yeah,
that's not something that I think you want to avoid because I think that's healthy.
mm,
And anybody that's
mm,
achieved anything, Andre, needs to do that. What I'm speaking about not carrying guilt, shame, hate, um, any level of suffering, anything that's brought us down in the past. Don't give it any energy. If, for instance, you failed at something, like, for instance, if I, got badly beaten in a karate tournament and I gave up, well,
yeah,
where's the spirit? What sort of weakness is that? That flies in the face
yeah,
of everything that I was. And so, no, I would never do that. I would go back and back and back and back. And
yes,
so we just always have to reinvent ourselves. We
yeah,
don't carry our past with us. And there's a part in the book where I say, "What benefit are my experiences and memories to me now?" The experiences I've had, and I am the result of the experiences. So why do I need to dwell on them? I did this and I did that, and that made me this and that made me that. It just is. And the memories, oh, when I was here, when I was there, of course I speak about them because I'm educating people. Um, uh, but as far as I'm concerned, they're all meaningless to this thing now
mm,
because this thing is what it is. And it's the result of all that stuff. So I can just sever all that stuff. I don't need to drag it with me.
yeah. Much of the that I can relate to. but certain things like uh, letting go of things that are more close to this uh, past months or past year or something like that is maybe a bit harder to let go of.
Yeah.
So it's a process of letting go and know that it will pass, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, letting go is a bereavement of a sort. You let
Yeah.
go, and it can be scary because you wonder, who you are if you let everything go. Because most of us want to hang on to all these memories of this and that. You see, I have issues with family members because they only see me from what they think they know about me. There is a vast amount that they don't know about me. And so they don't know who I am. And yet they think they do. And they
Yeah.
hang on to their thoughts of what I was when I was 14 and when I was 20, all this stuff. And they will never let go of that. They will never evolve. They will never have the mental ability to step back from that and ask, is Aaron another person now? Can I
Mm.
really attribute all these things to Aaron now? They'll never do that.
No.
Family members and friends and people in general invariably will never do that. They don't have the mental capacity and the wisdom to be able to ask themselves if we've changed over time.
Mm. Mm.
And
Yeah.
so people always want to put you back into the pigeonhole where they feel comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah. I recognized that. Yeah. Because I know, like, my mother doesn't know me, my father doesn't know me, my brother do know me, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, but if I say to my mother that she don't know me, she get upset because she don't, absolutely not. She don't have the capacity to know me, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it. And it's a very bizarre thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and so, of course, the difference in perception causes the greatest of divide. And the only way you could maintain a relationship with these people is if you pretended to be that person that they thought they knew. That's the only way the relationship could continue. Because if you do anything or say anything outside of what they think you are, that will cause conflict because they don't like that. They think it's alien. And they go,
Yeah.
that's not you. Why are you acting like this? Why are you doing that? And this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And, you know, uh, of course, certain members of my family have leveled at me that, I think highly of myself. And I would say to them, well, who has it that's traveled very, very extensively around the world? Who has it that's been successful in business beyond any of you guys? Who has it that's, been an incessant reader for many, many years? Who is it that's, been steeped in meditation and took many conscious expanding entheogens? Who's done all this? It's not you, is it? Because if it was you, then you'd be in the same boat and you'd be able to realize who and what I am. But you haven't done any of those things. You know nothing about those things. And so you have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
Were you with me when I was traveling around the world, having near death experiences and, incarcerated and, having 1,000 relationships with the varying people? Where were you? You see, this is one of the bits of wisdom which is in the Bible, in the book of Job. When Job has a problem with how he's been treated by Yahweh, Job says, I did everything for you. How dare you treat me like this? And then Yahweh says to him, who do you think you are? Do you think you know the nature of the cosmos? Where were you when I was molding, the earth out of dust and the skies out of, thin air and whatever, things like this. Where were you? And then Job's kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Because how could he chastise somebody that he couldn't remotely understand?
Mm.
So even what God allowed to happen to Job was absolutely despicable. Killed all his family, killed all his thousands of animals, put boils all over him and riddled him with pain and suffering and anguish. That was absolutely despicable and evil. But the
Yeah.
message there was, who are you to judge an entity vastly higher than you? And this is the thing. This is why the world is like it is at this moment in time, Andre, because the powers that be know that the masses are imbeciles,
Yeah.
and they are not allowing the imbeciles to have their vote to change the course of the world and to spoil all of their hard work, which they've been working on for thousands of years. They are
Yeah.
not in any time soon going to be allowing the idiots to start choosing and directing the course of the world. That's why they put up fake governments and give the illusion of choice. There is no choice at all. And I'm in full agreement with that because the masses are too stupid. They will only ever vote from their emotions. They will only ever vote from their self centered, egotistical, basic survival um, level of consciousness.
Yeah.
They couldn't vote for a future country. They couldn't vote, for a time in the future longer than the end of their nose.
Yeah.
They're not capable of doing that, and
No.
so they shouldn't have this privilege of voting. You see,
No, I
voting,
don't think so either. Because
yeah,
if their mental capacity can't do such a thing, because if you're just voting for something because your father's grandfather's father did it, you still keep on doing the same thing. Then you should probably not have that privilege or whatever you can call voting. Voting is just nothing really.
yeah. But what I will say is that at this moment in time, people don't deserve the right to vote. Most people,
No.
and if they think I'm wrong, then they should do something about it. They should
Yeah.
become very, very learned in the machinations of the world. They should be very, very keen listeners to what's going on in Parliament and all these sort of things, um, because you need to know the beast you're dealing with. If you don't know the beast you're dealing with, then you are not qualified to make any suggestions at all. So, uh, what people need to do is, if they want to take their world back, then they have to put the work into it. They have to go back to ground zero to educate themselves about it, so they know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a shit fest, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
idiocracy.
Yeah.
Idiocracy.
Absolutely.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
But you see, what happened is in recent times is people became more and more comfortable and more busy. Which of course was a machination of the powers that be to keep everybody too busy, so they became ill-informed and dependent on government. It was all a plan from the very, very beginning, but we allowed it to happen because we liked the comfort and we
Yeah.
like the laziness of it. But the fact of it is, Andre and people, we absolutely cannot afford to be lazy because our whole livelihood is in jeopardy if we do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Right.
how it is.
So I think we'll wrap this one up here. It's almost 2 hours, and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
window cleaner is going to be brushing his spray watery brush on my windows in a minute and knocking on the door for payment.
Yeah.
But this again, this conversation remarkable. They get deeper and deeper every time.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what I need to do to encourage people to watch these videos, because people are watching them less and less. On our last
Mm.
video, there's only 80 views, whereas if I was eating a burger, I'd get 200 views.
Mm.
But I suppose the 200 people aren't the ones we want to have listen to us in any case.
Yeah.
The 80 are the ones that are the ones that are benefiting from it. Anyway,
Yeah.
Winnie's at the door, mate. Great
Yeah.
talk. Talk to you soon, yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely. See
Cheers,
you.
Andre. Bye for now.
Cheers.